Hello and welcome to this introductory keynote session, which kicks off the 11th Annual Analysys Mason Telecoms Summit. My name is David McElroy, and I work as part of Analysys Mason's online events team. I just wanted to start this session by covering a few points that will help you to get the most out of this and all of our other summit presentations. Firstly, please note that all sessions are available on demand, meaning that you can access them in an order and at a time and a date that suits you. We have a selection of keynote and breakout sessions for you to choose from, and you can access all of them via the event homepage. Once you have entered your chosen presentation, you'll have the ability to contact and connect with the presenters. You'll be able to download useful resources and submit questions. Please use the console widgets that you can see in front of you to submit your questions. And because these sessions are available on demand, our presenters will get back to you by email in the coming days. Once the presentation has ended, you can click on the event homepage and you'll be returned to the event homepage where you can select another session. Now I have the pleasure of introducing Managing Partner and Board Director Fiona Glennon and Chief Analyst Larry Goldman. So I think Fiona's going to kick the session off, so I'll pass over to you, Fiona, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Well, hello and welcome to the Analysys Mason Annual Telecoms Summit. We're in our 11th year, as David said, and had hoped to welcome you in person this year, but unfortunately the pandemic continues to affect us all. However, we're optimistic we'll be able to host our event in person again next year. By way of introduction, my name is Fiona Glennon and I'm the Managing Partner for Research at Analysys Mason. And whilst the pandemic does continue to affect our ability to travel and to gather in person, overall our industry is weathering the storm very well and in some ways thriving from the increased emphasis on e-commerce, working from home and virtual summits. And several of our sessions will have pandemic-specific content focused on impacts and recovery. Aside from the pandemic and in some ways accelerated by it, the communications industry faces significant opportunities and challenges. 5G will require massive investments, but we're unsure exactly how to make those investments pay off. The internet and cloud world creates new demands and opportunities that the telecom community can't control, yet they allow us to serve consumers and businesses in new ways. Cloud technology also enables us to develop communications technology in new, more agile ways, and those changes also create innovative ways to maximize value from telecom investments. And our 8 summit sessions will give deeper insights into these opportunities and challenges. Our opening session starts with our Chief Analyst, Larry Goldman, presenting an overall view, and then I'll be back to introduce our other speakers. So over to you, Larry.
Thank you, Fiona. So in this session, what we're going to do is give a little bit more insight into those points that Fiona just summarized. So we're going to look at the basics of our business, a connectivity business that's provided consistent revenue and profits, but really has had minimal growth, and look at how the telecom industry is figuring out how to move beyond connectivity, to continue connectivity, but move beyond it as well. And in doing that, network operators and the rest of the supplier community actually are facing some really complex choices. There's not just one obvious path forward. And our research is really focused on the opportunities and challenges related to these complex decisions. And the sessions in our summit today, or through all this time we have here, are focused on giving you some understanding of our views of how to address these challenges and some insight into how our research does that in more depth. So in my session, I'll be giving a view of this and also giving you some pointers to the specific sessions that you can view on demand that cover these topics as we go along. So we've had a vertically integrated telecom business that's been very successful. We've successfully connected consumers through fixed and mobile services and enterprises through dedicated services to help them in the various aspects of enterprise business. And we've been hugely successful in doing that in our industry. and it's a good profitable business. It's a solid business. It's very dependable, but it's also flat, and it has been for some time. As you can see, one forecast chart from our just a very small smidgen of our ongoing research, and we forecast that it's going to basically be flat. Now, it turns out that we look at in-depth, and there are regional differences, and you'll see this in our research, and it'll come out in any number of our presentations as we go along, that there is color and flavor in this as we look at individual cases in the ongoing connectivity business. And also, when we look at individual countries, individual situations, operators are competing for market share. So it is possible for operators to get growth essentially at the expense of others. And we cover this in quite a bit of detail in our ongoing research as well. And one way we do this is we produce a lot of research, as I'm sure all of you are aware, and we bring this data together, this market data together in our data hub, which is one of the really powerful resources we have for all of our customers. So the telecom industry has historically had this steady focus. It's gone back for over 100 years, where we were very focused on getting fixed lines in every home, getting copper running out there and so forth. And really, for basically 100 years, this was the story of our industry. We did it very successfully. In the 1980s, a big focus on mobile networking. And so operators knew what they needed to do. They needed to build out mobile networking, get more and more customers focused. We got better and better at moving those capabilities into emerging markets where you could have a good business on a lower ARPU. And that was what we did there. And around 2000, the emphasis shifted from voice communications toward more broadband communications, and almost everybody focused very heavily on getting fixed broadband connections in place, connecting homes and connecting businesses. And then with the advent of 3G and really with the coming of 4G, we had mobile broadband, and that's what we've been very focused on for roughly the last decade. And we've been hugely successful at getting almost everybody on the planet connected, able to talk, able to get access to data on demand. But now we're looking at a more complex environment. Operators are really looking for new ways to maximize the value of their investments. So we had this sort of simple world of providing communication services, and represented by the upper part of this diagram, and everything underneath it was very simple and very much under the control of an operator. But now we're looking at a complex world where that's changing. And so we are dealing with, in fact, new ways to provide connectivity and in both fixed and mobile services. And we're looking at a world where the physical assets that operators traditionally owned and controlled are now maybe more valuable in various ways. We have people investing in them, have been in towers for quite some time, and more recently in fiber. And people who invest in and own these, and in some cases operate them, that are not providing these traditional communication services. So there are new issues for operators in terms of which of these things that they really need to do. And we now have third parties, people that we don't think of as being traditional operators, that are becoming a part of this equation. That we have people who are facility owners and so forth. We have the use of wholesale from other connectivity providers, and the opportunity for traditional telcos to be wholesale providers, and all sorts of new businesses coming in to offer services and take advantage of the connectivity that the telecom industry has done so well. So operators now face difficult choices to make in terms of where they invest going forward. So one of those is to continue improving and continue on in networks and services. And of course, because it's a good business and because it's reliability, that's a very sensible thing for operators to do. And nearly every operator that's been in this business is going to continue being in that business. So, but there's a matter of degree. Is that all you do? Or are you working on engaging in new services that go beyond connectivity? And we have any number of our sessions here that are going to really look at this issue of how much you continue to improve in the current networks and services, how much to engage in new services. So, for instance, Stephen Wilson and Rupert Wood are really looking at the fiber issues. How much can you push your network and get more value for additional investment in fiber? Bob Takas is responsible for SMB services and is looking at how are SMBs investing in technology and to what extent that affects the communications business. And he has a session specifically on that. John Abraham and Justin Vanderland have a session on the way that operators are working on automating this ongoing network and services and so forth. So we have a lot of sessions that are dealing with these kinds of things as we go along here. So we are dealing with investing in agile and lower cost ways to deliver connectivity. And we have a session specifically on that. I'll mention again later. And then this whole business of diversifying with wholesale service models is a very important area that we as an overall business deal a lot with as there's new kinds of investors coming into the industry. So this first step is operators continue to invest in connectivity. You see the deployment of fiber as Rupert and Stephen Wilson are going to deal with, and upgrading the mobile network. And Stephen Sale has a session on consumer services where he's going to deal both with the current state of supporting 5G and new things and new models in 5G. We're dealing with more enterprise connectivity. And as I mentioned, SMB services and Bob Takas handling of that. And of course, IoT and what's going on in that is an important area. All of these extending the reach of connectivity. But we're really thinking hard, and operators are dealing hard about services that move beyond connectivity. And in this diagram, we have sort of a simplified view of connectivity and the way much of this has been done up until now. We've had special purpose apps, various ways of producing content, some unique things here for connecting desktops in enterprises, obviously added value services on mobile phones, and special purpose things like firewalls and so forth. And that whole business is shifting to a cloud-driven aspects of things. And so there's a lot of questions about how do operators engage in this more cloud-driven area. Public cloud is a big factor in this. We have industry-specific platforms coming along. We've published quite a bit of research in this already. Cloud gaming is a good example of where we see this sort of thing developing. And Stephen Sale has a session where he's really going to be looking at how operators are trying to deal with in a B2C, how that's affecting new business models for 5G. And then the same thing is true happening on enterprise. I think in some ways we think of it as more obviously happening in the enterprise world. And Michelle McKinsey and Tom Rebick have one of our sessions focused on private networks and edge computing as these as the enterprise specific use of, particularly around 5G and building out in a world that's very influenced by cloud computing. So now I said that one of the third thing that operators are doing beyond connectivity itself and extended services that go beyond connectivity is applying that cloud technology, all that new technology in the network itself in what's the best way to provide connectivity. So Caroline Gabriel and Caroline Chappell have a session specifically looking at how the deployment of 5G networks is enabled and supported by these, what kinds of opportunities that creates. So we have a world here where cloud technology kind of invades the network, and operators will continue to provide consumer business services on this, but there are also then new ways to engage with other industries and so forth. And 5G has a lot of capabilities, and other things like SD-WAN have new capabilities that allow operators to provide much richer connectivity services and so forth for other industries. So a very specific example that we're dealing with in that is the issue of virtualized RAN. This is a big topic. The radio access network is an area, probably the biggest single area of investment spending by telcos, and it is a very significant issue for almost every telco to deal with, is what do I do about the virtualized RAN? The traditional way we've developed RAN and deployed it for the last 40 years or so is depicted on the far left of this. And we can do this and continue it in a physical disaggregation and get some benefits from that. But certainly operators, very high-profile operators, here in Europe, big emphasis on Open RAN and so forth. But operators all over the world are trying to evaluate how much can I virtualize, what makes sense. And the fact is not every operator will come to the same conclusions. So we think many operators will stick with things that are more traditional in that way, but some operators are going to push very hard. So we have high-profile operators like Rakuten or Dish and Verizon are making a big area, and obviously Deutsche Telekom and Telefonica, Orange, BT, Vodafone are all making very strong statements, big investments in how to take advantage of this virtualized RAN. And other operators are sort of looking at the developments of this and having to make decisions about how it affects them. And the supplier community is doing this. It opens up a lot of other opportunities in the supplier community and a lot of challenges to make it work all together. So this is an area of significant work in our research and a significant aspect of what Caroline Chappell are talking about in their session. So the last point we said is a big issue is looking at these higher returns from both active and passive assets as wholesale. So traditionally, operators have gotten all their revenue from providing end services, primarily consumer services, and to a lesser extent, the B2B services directly in a retail business. But certainly, new technology allows for operators to say, maybe I should let other people handle the retail aspects of that and so forth, and especially when we get into more and more of an OTT world and certain kinds of specialized things in transportation, entertainment, and so forth. There may be third-party service providers that will actually have a more direct customer relationship, and it's good business, perhaps, for operators to have this connectivity. And you can see on the analysis done by Rupert Wood as part of our operator investment strategies and fiber strategies programs, looking at the fact that the traditional retail service business is a 35% margin business and has been for a long time pretty predictable. And if in our analysis, that the active wholesale business, there's not as much revenue in it, but the margins are much better. So for some operators, they're trying to make the decisions about this. And Rupert's got a session with Stephen Wilson, looking specifically at the fiber aspect of this, at the passive wholesale, going into more detail on the opportunities for operators dealing with passive wholesale. So this another example of decisions that can make a big impact for operators and how they take their businesses forward. We're trying to support this overall issue with a wide range of our research. So one last point to make about this, these different approaches operators are thinking about creates a richer ecosystem of suppliers and partners. So it's operators have more decisions to make about who they may work with and more options and more decisions to make. And clearly, we have many more people who have a role in this industry, more players who can take a role, have important things to contribute and so forth. Again, part of this more complex decision process. So one last point I'll make here, just to come back and say, look, our summit presentations, our ongoing research is trying to help operators, vendors, investors, regulators, this whole range of our customers to deal with these trade-offs, these possible decisions that they have to make. They're not as easy to make as they once were. And I think that we've got a really great set of sessions to deal with this, and a lot of research beside that. And I'm going to turn off. We're going to wrap up here and lead you on now toward the remainder of our research. And Fiona is going to wrap up for us.
Thank you, Larry. So let me briefly introduce the remaining 8 sessions, which will cover in depth many of the topics Larry's outlined. So following up specifically on 5G, Caroline Gabriel and Caroline Chappell have a session. Larry alluded to many of these sessions. They have a session to explain the myriad of possibilities and the great uncertainty of 5G, with the expectations of hundreds of billions of dollars in new revenue. We have a new panel discussion this year. Our panel of 3 research directors and Larry will discuss their views and challenge each other's views on how best to pursue 5G. I'm delighted to welcome Bob Takacs to the summit for the first time. And Bob's going to be sharing research on SMB's IT spending priorities and focusing on the significant opportunities the SMB market presents for operators, albeit with a cautionary note regarding operators' declining market share of SMB spending. Michelle McKenzie and Tom Rebeck will be drilling into the opportunity for telecom operators in private networks and edge computing, specifically looking at how operators can play to their strengths and mitigate their weaknesses. Stephen Sale will be delivering a session on 5G ecosystems and business model disruption in the consumer market and the potential for business model disruption in B2C and B2B2C segments. John Abraham and Justin Vanderland's session will be discussing the role of automation in monetizing 5G and delivering cloud-like B2B and B2C digital experiences. Martin Scott will be reviewing operator TV strategies and looking to move beyond the traditional TV telecoms bundle. And last but not least, we have a session led by Stephen Wilson and Rupert Wood, which focuses on monetizing new FTTP networks, specifically looking at retail-only, wholesale-only, and hybrid models. So thank you again for joining our summit this year. We hope you find the sessions valuable, and we're very much looking forward to hearing your questions and your comments. Thank you.